Hey guys, it's been a while since I posted a video. The last video you guys saw was my Assassin Stormbrand slash Penance brand that I started at the beginning of the league. Of course, we're a month league in now, and I haven't made any videos, no progress on any videos of all the other builds I've done, and I do apologize for that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a quick YouTube guide on my Penance brand Elementalist. The reason why we do Elementalist is because, Elementalist looks pretty, and generally with higher investment, Elementalist is probably, I would say, the strongest in terms of brand play style. Uh, just because of the ascendancy and so forth, definitely can scale Elementalist to do a lot harder damage than Assassin. So that's why we are Elementalist. I'll just do a quick little showcase of a Maven real quick for you guys.
My collection. Pain will be returned tenfold. Space aligns. Behold my collection.
I need more mana.
I will have what I want. Death will not be an escape. Scurry, scurry. Why?
Resistance will be punished. Time contorts. Scurry, scurry.
My irritation is growing. Stand still. How?
Stop resisting. Reality bends. Punishment inescapable.
Arrogant toy. Death will not be an escape.
Unfortunate, we didn't get to phase it.
Scurry, scurry. A cascade of pain.
And yeah, that's it. You can see, we do a lot of damage. Smoke.
The living toy must enjoy our content.
Alright, so a little brief overview of Penance and the items I am wearing. Right now I'm using two weapons. As you can tell, we have the Aisling spell damage non-chaos is extra chaos, +2, crit chance, multi, and cast speed. And on the other one, we were going for a mirror tier weapon, but we failed the Aisling and got lightning damage instead. But that's fine, it's only a 4% difference. This one has essence cast speed as well, as you can see, with multi and then double damage crafted. Helmet, we have a mirrored Penance brand helmet. Can't get any better. Best in slot helmet in the league right now. Mirror fees may vary. There's two different owners of two different helmets with different enchants, but both of them work perfectly fine. For chest, we are using Explodey and increased effective non-curse auras, elevated. The reason why we don't have Frenzy Charge on hit, like Stormbrand players do, is the reason is Penance brand doesn't damage and high tick rates, right? It ramps and then explodes every second. So you will never have enough hits with Penance brand in order to make Frenzy on hit useful. So instead we just take increased effective non-curse auras instead, which is a much bigger damage multiplier. For the amulet, +2, this is extra, multi, and then we double Islinged on the suffixes for res and minimum frenzy charge, which is nice. That way we always have at least one frenzy charge on bosses, which does help. Boots, we went with elusive, tailwind, and most people do onslaught and increase cast attack speed during onslaught. Now personally, I went with increased effective non-damaging ailments And for the sole reason is one of the clusters we use is cold conduction. So we're always at least shocking for 15%, which is then increased with 60%. So it's a good damage multiplier over Onslaught. Now, Onslaught with elevated Onslaught is better to reach the Penance brand activation rate, which is what you need is 10 per brand to reach a total of 20 before it explodes for maximum damage. When you don't have enough cast speed and not enough investment, it's better to go with the elevated Onslaught, but I don't need it, so I went with the elevated effective non-damaging elements, which is a lot better DPS. Of course, we have 2 Call of the Brotherhoods with all res to help with resistances. Gloves, we have Temple Gloves with increased damage against shield enemies. Culling, increased damage with non-Val skills. Elevated, or I guess Aisling, is damage converted to lightning, which is not necessary. We just ended up hitting that, and I didn't want to waste more money into the gloves. And then Crafted Life. And then for belt, we have high dex because we lack dex. We got good res. I have reduced flash charges used with flask effect because I like it for bossing, and then we Redeemer Slam for increased damage against chilled enemies. So I bought the belt base for 1x, and I did a Suffixes Cannot Be Changed, hit it with a Veiled Chaos Orb, got the Flask effect, and then slammed it with a Redeemer Orb. And you either can get cold damage, increased damage with hits against chilled enemies, and I forgot the third one, but basically you're more weighted to get a useful prefix on the Redeemer Orb. So we went ahead and did that for a budget belt. Now to go into the tree and all that, we'll pull up our POB real quick. So POB, as you can tell, when our Penance brands explode at 20 explosions, so that's with 2 of them on, we do 102 mil Shaper DPS. And just to show you, I only have 1 Frenzy Charge, because, you know, we're not going to be at 3 Frenzy Charges on bosses. We got Conk Ground for Bottled, enemy chilled with by your hits, with enemies chilled ignited. That, we got, guess we could take off Have You Killed Recently, that doesn't really matter too much. But basically, Shocked, Ignited, Chilled, all recently. Flask, Alchemist Genius, because we use a Spike Concoction. Tailwind, which doesn't really do much. Elusive, which, you know, doesn't really do much either, except give us some dodge. So this is slightly fluffed, I guess you could say, because this is for Val Righteous Fire. Without Val Righteous Fire, we are still 85 mil Shaper DPS. No fluff whatsoever. So burst damage with the Val RF, we're at 102. So for clusters, we use Brand Loyalty, Remarkables. We use 3 of these. And then we use one of them with Holy Conquest. So our brands, this is more so for map clearing. So your brands are always hopping and clearing mobs. And then, like I said, we use Cold Conduction for one of them. Storm Rider, so we do get power charges. And then Spike Concoction with Fasting. So that way we get flash charges gain, movement speed with no flasks, etc., etc. So to give you an idea on how I crafted some of these items, I have opened up a Craft of Exile page. So for gloves, so in order to, so a lot of people wonder, how do you get Culling Strike with Tempo Mod? How is it hard? Is it expensive? Is it undoable? No. So if you get Temple gloves, they're item level 73 to 79, right? If you look here, melee attack range is canceled out because of a low eye level. Same thing with chance to block attack damage. We ruled out one of the mods, and there's chance to avoid being stunned. One roll of chance to block attack damage and Culling Strike. Well, you can craft chance to avoid being stunned. So what that means is when we go to Warlord Slam our gloves, we have a 1 in 3 try to get Culling Strike on the glove suffixes, which is super good. You can get these glove bases for very cheap. Generally what you want to look for is gloves with 3 prefixes, the Temple mod, and 2 open suffixes. So that way you can craft chance to avoid being stunned on the bench, and then you can Warlord Slam it. Now, some of you are like, well, what about if there's not enough bases with cold res and increased damage hits with against chilled enemies? Well, if you guys did not know, the changed resistant crafts in Harvest can actually change these. So, for example, for temple gloves, say we have this, right? It's fire resistance with and added fire damage against burning entity. Fire damage against burning enemies. You can actually change fire res to cold res, and it will change it to the cold res temple mod. So that is an option. So you don't have to look for it. So when you're live searching these, or if you want to search up gloves to do it, you can literally look up for the ones with increased crit chance against shocked enemies, the fire damage against burning enemies, or even the chilled. So there's 3 different type of gloves you can look up. All you gotta make sure is that they have filled prefixes and 2 open suffixes. Now, what I did to make it a step further, so here's an example. So we have gloves with full prefixes. Like I said, you have to get that. We have the chilled, and we warlord exalted for the calling strike. I just put the elevated version, but so what we did from this step was we Aisling veiled it. So here we get cast speed. So pretty much you just take whatever you would like. This is what I did. So you go. This is actually not a bad one for increased attack and cast speed while focused. That's actually pretty decent, especially for brands. From here, you would go to harvest, and you would do reforge keep suffixes to open up a prefix. Then you go to bench, and you want to craft suffixes cannot be changed. This is an option you can do. You can do it the other way around. Like, for example, you can get spell damage on warlord. So if you wanted to, you can go reforge with caster, and you're guaranteed spell damage every time. Now the issue with that though is now you're left with 2 open prefixes, and you need conversion for Penance brand, so you can craft the conversion and have no life. You could technically, reforge life over and over and over till you got a good life roll, and then pray to God you hit spell damage or something with it. Basically what I did was I did that, and I did a veiled chaos sword like this. And then we unveiled, and look, we got conversion. So now we got conversion, and now you can just craft life. So that is how I made the gloves. Right here. Bam. Those are pretty much the exact same gloves I'm wearing, except a different unveiled suffix. So that's how you craft the gloves. They're not too difficult. They're not too expensive, especially with a 1 in 3 odd of hitting calling. You can see people are selling these gloves for about 20x, so it's something you can craft very easily for yourself. If you want to take the odds, if you don't want to craft, then of course you can always just buy them for about 20x for some base gloves with calling and a temple mod. Now for the wands, how we made, so this right here is the mirror tier wand minus the lightning damage. We went for the Aisling Slam, like I said earlier in the beginning of the video. We wanted spell damage and non-chaos as extra chaos, and that would have been mirror tier wands. But we hit lightning damage, so we're just going to roll with it. If we had hit something that wasn't relevant, of course we would have redid it. But this is good. We kept it. Basically what you want to do is you get a profane wand with fractured all spell, of course. So what I did, and what in my opinion is the cheapest way to do this, is you go for Miseries, which is the T0 cast speed, and you essence until you get multi, which is about roughly 1 in 24. It's about 10x worth of in bulk prices, about 10x to get your suffixes completed. After you do that, if you see here, if you get your wand to have multi only with the all spell and the cast speed, you can craft a multi mod to block the suffixes, and then you craft suffixes cannot be changed. And if you were to do Reforged Lightning, you can. It's a 1 in 57 to hit +1 all spell, which I got mine in 1 in 3, which I got extremely lucky doing mine. But it's about an average of 1 in 7 to do Reforges. So if you think about that, you can self-farm the harvest. Lightning Reforges are very, 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 very common, very easy to self-farm, which is what I did. And it'll be about 2x per roll. So it's going to cost you about 114x on average to get your prefix. So that's 124x for the perfect wand. And then the last step would be to Aisling. And if you look under the veiled mods, the Aisling mod for increased spell damage and non-chaos is chaos is a 20% when we take off the Exalti orb. So let's change this to chaos. So if you look, Spell damage gained as non-chaos as chaos is 20%. So we went for the 22% unveil. We didn't hit it, unfortunate, but it's about roughly 22%. So, but you, like I said, you can also hit lightning damage. Cold damage is actually not bad either because you fully convert basically. So cold damage is a decent one. Lightning damage is a decent one. You can hit spell damage with increased mana regen, which isn't that awful either. There's multiple prefixes that you could potentially hit. So in general, you're most likely to hit a useful prefix. And so to give an example, this wand, like I told you, it's about 10x in essences. I think we spent maybe 15-20x in essences because I got really unlucky with the Ensis spamming. And then I did 3 reforges. That was 6x. That's 26x. Of course, the Fractured All spell, it's a 1 in 5. Fractured 1 in 5 is about 4-5x. So that's about 20x. So we spent about 50x making this weapon, and it's 4% off mirror tier. So that's just a little information for you guys on how to craft yourself really, really good weapons. This one, we did it a different way, but after looking at it and thinking about it, this is the best way to make these weapons. Maybe I'll go ahead and redo this one and start working on a second one. But I doubt it, because this is like 2% worse than this one, which is this one's 4% worse than the mirror tier one. So at that point, it's not even worth me investing more money into that, unless I get lucky like I did before and spend a lot less money. But that's whatever. So yeah. So for the amulet, as you can see here, we have Fizz's extra lightning damage, +1/+1. I bought my base, so if you look at my amulet, I have +1/+1 Fizz's extra, T1 multi, and double Aisling, which we hit the double Aisling, and we got res, which is actually kind of needed in the build in the minimum frenzy charge, which is not bad either. It's 4% more damage because we'll always have it on bosses. So the way I did it is I bought a base that had all 3 already. Fizz's extra damage lightning is actually the best prefix. Now if you're playing Stormbrand, you of course would use Pen, but Fizz's extra is best in slot for Penance brand. So all I did was grabbed a base with perfect prefixes. I bought mine for 20x, and you just do prefixes cannot be changed, and then you do reroll crit, and you pretty much just do this until you get T1 multi. So there was T2 multi there, bam, T1 multi, and now all you have to do is just go ahead and Aisling it, unveil it. We got attachment range, cast speed, and minimum power charge. The minimum power charge is whatever. We'll take the increased attack cast speed because that's good. And then to finish it off, we'll just throw on all res or dual res if you need more reses of one or the other. So if I can find it, and I'm being blind, all elemental resistances, bam. And there you yourself have a almost pretty much mirror tier worthy Penance brand amulet. So yeah, that's about as much as that. And so as you see in the tree, in our ascendancy, we went with Golems. Golems are OP. The reason why Elementalist is so strong, especially in a higher tier setup, when you have the mirror tier helmet, your socketed gems apply exposure. Well, exposures you get an extra -25, which is huge DPS. But we use Hydrosphere as well to proc our elemental weakness on Hex Touch. And also the reason why we use Hydrosphere is also because, like I said, with Penance brand, it hits very, very little. It hits hard, but very little. And with that being said, you want to have them exposured before your Penance brand hits. So basically, you want to throw down your Penance brand on them and then slap them with your Hydrosphere. So that way you expose them. And then after that, your Penance brand will automatically continuously expose them because it hits once every second, essentially. Well, once every 0.88 seconds. And, exposure lasts for 4 seconds. So the Hydrosphere is kind of there just for, like, hit them once and then your Penance brands do the rest. Like I said, we go Golems. Golems are very, very, very OP. They give us a lot of cast speed, damage, etc., etc. We have that in a 6 link. So, of course, we use all 5 Golems. We use Lightning, Ice, Chaos, Stone, Flame. As you see with Lightning Golem itself gives us a 1.68 hit rate, which is a lot. And as you can see, it's 0.7% damage, but we don't look at it like that. We look at the hit rate. The hit rate is huge. So if you see here, my activations is only 9 per brand. So technically, I'd only be able to hit 18 activations, which would be, so from 20 to 18, we lose almost, what is that? 10 mil damage by not reaching maximum activations. So this is kind of why we also go Elementalist. Elementalists scale cast speed very well without needing frenzy charges and Badge of the Brotherhood. That way you can use the nice +2 amulet and whatnot. And then of course we went with Bastion of Elements. We do this because no reflect, and it also gives you the Primal Aegis Shield. Now, some of you are wondering, what's that? Well, if you look here, elemental damage from hits is taken from this Aegis before your life or energy shield. This Aegis will be restored to full value if you take no elemental damage from hits for a while. And as you can see, that's a 3k elemental shield for free. So I have roughly, 4,400 EHP between life and ES, and if it's an elemental hit, which is what majority of the game generally is, I have an extra 3k. So I have 7.4k EHP against elemental hits, which is absolutely fucking busted. And then of course Chaos Golem as well gives us a nice 26 Fizz mitigation because we run Enhance in the setup. So the build may look squishy, but it's not as squishy as it appears to be. Of course we use Glorious Vanity. We use Corrupted Soul, so we get maximum energy shield from life. On our Glorious Vanity, and here's the number so you guys can search the market yourselves, is 7238. And what ours gives us is Commanding Presence for 13% increased aura effect. And as you can see, that's 6.3% damage, which is a lot for one node. And then also on our small passes, we got lightning damage, cold damage, spell damage, and spell damage. So we get an additional 37% increased damage overall, just from the small nodes as well. So this Glorious Vanity is absolutely insane. And for the trees, we scale attachment range. We get Runesmith to get our 4th brand. We grab the life and energy shield nodes here because we are a hybrid build. Of course, you grab RMR here, RMR with more aura effect because aura effect is huge for this build. We go for Runebinder. We go for the attachment range and not the duration. Now, I'll give you an example of why duration is bad. You'll see some people on Ninja, they'll have Grand Design with brand loyalty. Basically what Grand Design does is we can look up here, medium, type in brand. So Remarkable, what that does is our skills have a 35% chance to create an additional brand when casted. And this is really important for Penance. So with 3 of these, you have a 100% chance to always cast 2 brands when you activate it. So as you see here, I activate, 2 brands pop out. So your 2 brands will always attach to the enemy at the same time. And the reason why that's really good is because you always want your Penance brands to hit at the same time. So if you see here, my activation without Onslaught, or not without Onslaught, without having killed recently, which gives me more attack and cast speed, I'm at exactly 10 activations per brand. Now, what would happen if my brands activated at different times? One would attach, it would proc 1 or 2, and then the second brand would attach after I cast again, and at that point I'd only be reaching a maximum of 18 or 19 max explosions. But because they're coming out at the same time, they're gonna always activate with 20 explosions. That's why Grand Remarkables was Remarkables are really good for Penance brands. The reason why doing Grand Designs is worse, so if you see here for Grand Design, your activations will, your brands last 10% longer. So, and I made a little paint graph for you guys. So Grand Designs versus Remarkables for Penance brand. So when you have Remarkables, you have no duration on your brands. So basically your damage spikes up instantly. When you have Grand Designs, you have ramping damage because now it's going to take longer for your brands to pop off. And basically what that means is if you read Penance brand, so if the branded enemy has 20 energy, each activation will instead deal a pulse of area damage, which is not really that great. You want it to pretty much explode, and that's why you aim for the 20 activations. So right as you get 20 activations, your brand disappears or / detaches, and every time you'll hit them with a 20 explode, which is huge damage for Penance brand. And that's kind of how Penance brand needs to be played Now, if you don't have budget in order to reach your 10 activations per brand, I would suggest using Stormbrand. Stormbrand is just as good as Penance, just, you know, one is visibly different than the other. Some people prefer the high boom style, and some people prefer the flashy chain everywhere lightning style. But they both basically work exactly the same, except with Stormbrand, you would use Grand Design instead of Remarkables and go for the duration and the more cast speed. But for Penance, you want to go for the less duration and hits harder that way. So yeah. As you see here, our 4-link is Brand Recall, Arcane Surge, Second Wind, Flame Dash. Then we have our Penance brand on a mirror helmet. We use Inspiration. Swift brand, we use Divergent Swift brand because you get 20% more activation frequency when there is 75% of the duration is expired, which helps with hit rate. And then Awaken Control Destruction. We use a Divergent Smoke Mine. Divergent Smoke Mine gives you increased attack and cast speed, which is very necessary with Second Wind and Foul Righteous Fire. For our auras, we run Zealotry, Enlightened Wrath, Hatred. And like I told you earlier, for the Golems, we use all 5 Golems with Enhance. And then we have Hydrosphere, Hex Touch, and Elemental Weakness. So yeah, for bossing, we use Wise Oak instead of a Quicksilver. For mapping, we swap out the Wise Oak for Quicksilvers. And if you see here, without the Wise Oak, we still do 91 mil damage, which is perfectly fine for mapping. So for our large clusters, we use Sadists because we're always Shocking, Chilling, Igniting, so it's huge increased damage. And then we use Snowstorm. So we use 2 of those clusters, and then one of the clusters I use is Sadist and Blast Freeze. And Blast Freeze is what helps a lot with the survivability, especially in like ultimatums or 100% deli maps and such, because freezes you inflict to other enemies within a inflect or spread or prolif within a radius of 12, so it's really big in terms of survivability. And the thing with Penance brand is it doesn't have a bunch of small hits, it only has generally big hits. So it is very likely to always freeze a mob, which will start a chain freeze reaction. But yeah, I mean, that's it for the build guide. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, feel free to ask me on stream. Like I said, I do apologize that I have not been making many videos lately, but I am streaming daily as usual. It is my full-time job, so I would much appreciate the support there. You know, like, subscribe to YouTube, help me grow here as well. But any questions about the build or anything like that, you can see me playing it daily on the stream. I'll be also creating more and more quote-unquote mirror tier items for this build. We're definitely going to try to min-max this build as a league goal. But yeah, guys, that's it. Y'all have a good one.